In 2007, BlackBerry looked at the iPhone and saw a toy. No keyboard. Expensive. Weak for business. Not serious enough for executives or governments. But 6 years later, that toy had helped destroy one of the most powerful phone companies on Earth. BlackBerry was not run by fools. It was built by Mike Lazaridis, so the engineer who saw wireless email early, and Jim Balsillie, the business fighter who turned a Canadian device company into a global status symbol. One man built the machine, the other sold the empire. Wall Street had BlackBerries, CEOs had BlackBerries, politicians had BlackBerries. If you carried one, it meant you were important enough to be reached everywhere. Airports, taxis, meetings, dinner, and probably when you should have been asleep. People called it the Crackberry. And at the time, the addiction made sense. BlackBerry gave people email in their pocket, always on, always connected. Today, that sounds normal. Back then, it felt like carrying the office in your hand. It had a real moat, secure email, a physical keyboard, enterprise servers, and corporate trust. IT departments trusted it. Executives depended on it. Employees could type without looking down. That little keyboard was not just a feature, it was the throne. And the numbers showed it. By 2010, BlackBerry still had more than 40% of the US smartphone market and tens of millions of subscribers worldwide. Its market value had already soared past $77 billion. This was not a tiny company missing a trend. This was an empire on top of the mountain, while the ground underneath it changed shape. Then Steve Jobs walked onto a stage with something strange. A phone with no keyboard, a big glass screen, fingers instead of buttons. To BlackBerry's world, this looked ridiculous. Corporate buyers cared about typing, security, battery life, email, and reliability. The iPhone looked expensive, playful, and risky. And some of that criticism was fair. The first iPhone was not a perfect enterprise weapon. It looked like a shiny consumer toy. That was exactly why BlackBerry underestimated it. BlackBerry asked old-world questions. Could it type faster than a BlackBerry? Could it control it? Could it beat BlackBerry at secure corporate email on day one? Reasonable questions. Wrong questions. Apple was not trying to build a better BlackBerry. Apple was changing what a phone was supposed to be. The first warning was not market share. It was behavior. Apple sold 1 million iPhones in 74 days. Then the App Store launched in 2008, and users downloaded more than 10 million apps in its first weekend. That was the siren, not the phone, the ecosystem. BlackBerry still saw a device. Apple was building a platform. And while BlackBerry tried to understand Apple, another threat was waking up at Google. Andy Rubin and Android were not building one phone. They were building an open platform manufacturers could use everywhere. HTC, Motorola, Samsung, carriers, hardware makers. Anyone who did not want Apple to control the future now had somewhere to go. Apple was one enemy. Android was an army. BlackBerry had to fight Steve Jobs on one side and Google's open platform on the other. Apple made the premium dream. Android gave the rest of the industry a weapon. That was the trap. BlackBerry thought the keyboard was the moat, but Apple made the screen the platform. Google made the platform spread. Samsung, HTC, Motorola, and others flooded the market with touchscreens. A keyboard could help you type. A platform could become almost anything. Then developers arrived. Games, maps, music, photos, social apps, tools. Every new app made iPhone and Android harder to ignore. Every developer made those ecosystems stronger. Every user gave developers another reason to build. This was the flywheel BlackBerry did not control. BlackBerry still had email. Apple had possibility. Android had scale. And in technology, possibility plus scale is dangerous. But the collapse did not start in a boardroom. It started in people's pockets. Picture a CEO named David. For years, David loved his BlackBerry because it made him feel in control. He could answer emails anywhere. The keyboard was muscle memory. Then his wife got an iPhone. His kids got iPhones. Younger employees walked into meetings with iPhones and Androids. At first, David thought they were toys. Then he noticed something uncomfortable. They read documents on bigger screens, opened links faster, checked maps faster, shared photos faster, used apps his BlackBerry did not have. One day, David stopped asking, "Is this serious enough for work?" He started asking, "Why does my work phone feel worse than my personal phone?" That question was deadly. Once executives wanted the consumer phone, BlackBerry's fortress had a crack in the wall. Before the iPhone, touching a screen all day sounded strange. After the iPhone, using tiny keys for everything started to look old. Innovation does not only create a new product, it changes how people judge the old one. Suddenly, BlackBerry's keyboard was not just useful. It was limiting. The screen was smaller because the keyboard needed space. The software felt tighter because the device was built around messages. The product was optimized for a world that was disappearing. BlackBerry did see the iPhone, it just saw it through the old world. It judged a platform like a phone. That is how empires get blindsided. They lose because they know too much about the old game. Then BlackBerry tried to respond. In 2008, it launched the Storm, its first major touchscreen answer. On paper, it looked like BlackBerry understood the threat. A touchscreen BlackBerry, a response to Apple, a way to protect the empire. But catching the future is hard when you are still protecting the past. The Storm was competing with the feeling the iPhone created. Smooth, simple, magical, obvious. Meanwhile, Android spread. HTC made Android phones. Motorola made Android phones. Samsung made Android phones. BlackBerry was no longer fighting one product. It was fighting a market mutation. By 2011, Android had become the largest smartphone platform in the United States. Apple was still climbing. BlackBerry was falling. The old king was now in third place. Now imagine Maya, a long-time BlackBerry user on Wall Street. She did not switch because she hated BlackBerry. She switched because the rest of her life had moved. Her friends were on new apps, photos looked better, websites worked better, maps worked better, her bank app worked better. Slowly, the BlackBerry became the thing she used only because her company still required it. Not hated, just tolerated. And tolerated products do not create the future. They wait to be replaced. By 2012, pressure reached the top. Mike Lazaridis and Jim Balsillie stepped down as co-CEOs and co-chairmen. The men who built the kingdom handed the job to Thorsten Heinz. Barbara Stymist became board chair. The board did act, but late. It changed the driver while the car was already sliding off the road. Leadership could see contracts and security, but not the emotional migration. People were comparing how devices made them feel. The iPhone felt modern. Android felt flexible. BlackBerry felt responsible. Responsibility is useful, but it is rarely exciting. BlackBerry 10 was supposed to be the comeback. But by then, Apple and Android already had users, developers, apps, mindshare, and momentum. BlackBerry shipped 1 million Z10 phones in early 2013, but its subscriber base was already slipping from 79 million to 76 million in 1 quarter. Then came the harder punch. Later in 2013, BlackBerry warned of nearly $1 billion in losses and planned to cut about 40% of its workforce, around 4,500 jobs. The board explored a possible sale. A Fairfax-led deal valued the company at $4.7 billion. Remember the peak? More than $77 billion. That is not a decline. That is an empire falling through the floor. Then even that sale process failed. Thorsten Heinz stepped down. John Chen came in after the phone. Empire had already collapsed. BlackBerry survived by shifting towards secure communications, cybersecurity, and embedded software. But the phone empire is gone. The keyboard kingdom collapsed. The lesson is uncomfortable. The thing that makes you successful can become the thing that blinds you. BlackBerry thought it owned the future because it owned the keyboard. But Apple changed the question. The old question was, who makes the best mobile email device? The new question was, what can this thing in your pocket become? When the question changes, the old answer stops mattering. The future often starts out looking unserious, too expensive, too weird, too playful, too early. That is why powerful companies miss it. Not because they are stupid, because the future does not arrive wearing a name tag that says, I am about to destroy you. It arrives looking like a toy. In technology, being perfectly built for yesterday can be the most dangerous thing of all. This was the autopsy of BlackBerry. Next time we look at another empire that invented the future, then buried it, Kodak. Hit like to help more people find this story. Subscribe for the next autopsy.